Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. And Dynamite tonight, I'm going to be honest with you guys, as always. I'm very honest with you guys. Dynamite tonight just wasn't a very good show. It wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad show by any means. It wasn't on the levels of Monday Night Raw bad, as what Monday Night Raw is every single week. It wasn't on that level. But still, Dynamite just wasn't a very good show tonight. I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling Dynamite tonight. But there's going to be times that, AEW, we're used to every single week getting good shows out of them. And then there's always that one time where you're not going to get a very good show out of AEW. Technically, that's what it was tonight. But on Dynamite tonight, we saw Hangman and Page and the Dark Order versus the Hybrid 2 and Chaos Project. We had Cody Rhodes versus Peter Avalon. John Moxley was in action. He ended up taking on Nick Comoroto. We had Private Party and Matt Hardy versus Matt Sydal and Top Flight. Penelope Ford versus Leyla Hirsch, which originally this was supposed to be Nyla Rose. Nyla Rose was supposed to take on Leyla Hirsch. But Nyla Rose ended up announcing that a close family member, tested positive for COVID. And so she had to, be in quarantine because of that. So due to that, they end up putting Penelope Ford in place. So Penelope Ford took on Leyla Hirsch. And in the main event, we saw MJF and Chris Jericho versus Santana and Ortiz versus Jake Hager and Sammy Guevara. The winner gets proved to be the best team, the best tag team in the Inner Circle. But overall, like I said, Dynamite just wasn't a very good show tonight. It wasn't bad. It wasn't on the levels of Monday Night Raw bad, but still, it wasn't a very good show, in my opinion. So let's jump right into the Dynamite review. So Dynamite opened up tonight with Hangman and Page and the Dark Order versus the Hybrid 2 and Chaos Project. And before the match got underway, we had the Dark Order out on stage because they were celebrating BRODIE Lee Jr., aka Negative One's birthday. And there was a cake that was set up on the stage. We had John Silver end up getting the group and the live crowd to sing happy birthday to BRODIE Lee Jr., aka Negative One, which they all did. And so then out came Chaos Project, Luther and Serpentico. So they end up coming out to ruin the fun, and that they don't care if they ruin the fun. Luther ended up saying they don't like children. He ended up calling BRODIE Lee Jr. stupid looking. So Luther ended up going on to say that they are going to ruin BRODIE Lee Jr.'s birthday. So now we got a brawl that broke out between Chaos Project and the Dark Order. And then we had Jack Evans and Angelico end up showing up the Hybrid 2. So they got into the brawl. Hangman and Page then came out and he leapt off the stage and he took out the Hybrid 2 and Chaos Project and a few members of Dark Order, which I thought that leap from Page off the stage was cool. And then we had the match start. So the match got underway, and this match was in, of course, celebration of BRODIE Lee Jr.'s birthday. So the match got underway. We had John Silver being up on the Hybrid 2, Jack Evans and Angelico. Silver took a punch from Angelico to the face. Angelico ended up tagging in Luther. Luther delivered a butterfly suplex to John Silver. Tagged in Serpentico. Luther then delivered a power slam from Serpentico down onto John Silver. And he then used Angelico's face to hit a bulldog on John Silver. So there was a point in the match where Page ended up powerbombing Jack Evans into the crowd, which was cool. And then we saw Luther end up, he was looking to put Colt Cabana through a table, but BRODIE Lee Jr., -1, got involved, and he ended up hitting Luther with a kendo stick. Cabana then ended up dumping Luther's face into the cake. So Luther went face first into the cake that was on the stage. So then we went back into the ring. The Dark Order ended up destroying Serpentico. Page delivered a buckshot lariat to Serpentico. And then Alex Reynolds, ended up getting the jackknife pin on Serpentico. There you go. Hangman and Page and the Dark Order ended up winning the match. Post-match, the Dark Order ended up grabbing Serpentico, and BRODIE Lee Jr. Got on the mic. BRODIE Lee Jr. ended up saying that Serpentico thinks he's going to ruin his birthday. So BRODIE Lee Jr. ended up hitting Serpentico over the head with the kendo stick, and he ended up telling the Dark Order that his birthday was actually 3 days ago, idiots, which BRODIE Lee Jr. ended up saying. So BRODIE Lee Jr. already having decent mic skills, at his age now. So BRODIE Lee Jr. ended up grabbing some papers, and he threw it at Serpentico. And then we went back into the ring. John Silver was on the mic, and he ended up giving Hangman and Page compliments, saying, "Oh, you're good, you're good." And he then asked Page if he'll join the Dark Order. So, John Silver was on one knee. It looked like he was proposing to Hangman and Page, saying, "Oh, will you join us? Will you join the Dark Order?" Page ended up taking the mic, and Page ended up saying, "I can't." And so then we had a banner play on the screen where it said, "He said yes." And I had to laugh at that. I was laughing when it said "he said yes" on it. So Page ended up saying that he had fun with the Dark Order over the past few weeks. He ended up saying that he's done the group thing before, and it didn't end well for him. Page ended up apologizing to John Silver, and he ended up heading up to the stage. So he just walked off, and that was that. With John Silver here, it was funny. It was looking like he was proposing to Hangman and Page for him to join the Dark Order and say, "Will you join?" Which I thought that was funny. But overall, the match itself, it was decent. And then we went backstage. Alex Marvez was with Jericho and MJF. Marvez was talking to Jericho and MJF about the match that we saw later on in the night, which was the main event. Jericho and MJF taking on Santana and Ortiz, taking on Jake Hager and Sammy Guevara. So MJF ended up telling Jericho he's worried that tonight's match could hurt the Inner Circle. And Jericho ended up saying that he doesn't think so, and that he thinks it'll make the Inner Circle stronger. And he ended up saying that it will decide which tag team moves forward to go after the World Tag Team titles. So Jericho ended up saying that he fully believes him and MJF are going to win. So MJF ended up agreeing with Jericho, saying that they will eventually be the World Tag Team Champions soon. So then we had Tony Schiavone in the ring. Tony Schiavone ended up bringing out Sting for Sting to congratulate Darby Allin on being the TNT champion. So Sting ended up coming out. Sting was wearing a Brodie Lee shirt. So he made his way into the ring. And then Tony Schiavone ended up bringing out Darby Allin. So Sting ended up getting on the mic. Sting ended up saying that there's something about Darby Allin that reminds him of himself. He then said his congrats to Darby Allin for being the TNT champion. And Sting went on to say that he didn't get involved last week in Darby's match with Brian Cage, and that he just wanted to make sure that Darby Allin was given a fair shot against Brian Cage, because of course Team Taz tried to get involved. So then Taz was shown on the screen with Team Taz there. Taz ended up saying that Sting and Darby Allin acted dirty last week in the match with Brian Cage. And he ended up mentioning Darby Allin tying up Brian Cage's feet with his belt. So Taz ended up saying that if they want to act dirty, how about they come to the streets? So he ended up telling them that the ball is in their court. So then we saw Sting end up saying something to Darby Allin. Darby Allin ended up taking the mic, and he said to Taz, "You want to take it to the streets? Be careful what you wish for, because it just might happen." So that was the segment there. That was how the segment ended. But it looks like they're trying to set this up for Darby Allin and Sting. Sting might possibly get back into the ring. He might tag with Darby Allin and take on one of the members of Team Taz. I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to set this whole thing up. We might possibly see Sting in the AEW ring competing in a match. But I said it before. I think what they're trying to do with Sting is to make Sting be Darby Allin's manager. I said it plenty of times. I could see them doing that. But at the same time, with this whole thing that they're doing with Sting and Darby Allin and Team Taz, looks like it's going to lead to a match where you're going to have Sting team with Darby Allin to take on one of the members of Team Taz, whether it's Brian Cage, whether it's Ricky Starks, whether it's Powerhouse Hobbs, whether it's one of those guys. But that's my prediction. I know that they're possibly trying to do it. So, but I can sense that happening. So then we had the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick. Matt and Nick ended up meeting up at Kenny Omega's house. Michael Nakazawa ended up greeting them at the door, and he ended up bringing them to Omega. So then we saw this oil painting of Omega and Don Callis. And in this painting, both Omega and Callis were shirtless and muscled up. And I thought this painting was hilarious. So Don Callis ended up showing up, and of course Matt and Nick weren't happy about that. Weren't happy about what happened last week. Callis ended up saying that he had someone in his ear, and that they had to change stuff on the fly. He wanted to say that Kenny Omega couldn't make the meeting today, and that annoyed Matt and Nick. Callis ended up saying that Omega had to change up his phone number because others were blowing it up. So Don Callis was surprised that the Bucks didn't get it. So he ended up saying that he's glad that the Bucks are here. So Callis then ended up kicking out Alex Marvez and the camera guy that was filming all this, but the camera was still left there. Callis then ended up talking with Matt and Nick about working with Kenny Omega. Callis then offers up a check for them. He offered up a check for the Bucks to make an investment in Kenny Omega. So the Young Bucks looked at the number and said that they made that much last week. And Callis ended up forgetting that the Bucks were merch guys. So Callis then ended up giving the Bucks another check. And Matt ended up saying that it's crazy that Don Callis thinks he can buy out their friendship. So Callis ended up saying that the Bucks are actually holding Kenny Omega back, and that they are nothing but hanger-ons. So the Bucks end up saying, oh yeah, just like the company that he works for, that Don Callis works for, that they once worked for, because of course the Bucks end up working for Impact, and so the Bucks were taking shots at the company that they once worked for, Impact, because Don Callis is, I think, the vice president of Impact there. So the Bucks end up saying that they know that their checks are no good. So the Bucks end up ripping up the checks, and Don Callis end up calling the Bucks bloodsuckers. So Matt and Nick go and beat up on Don Callis, as the camera end up cutting out, and so that was that. And so then we had Cody Rhodes versus Peter Avalon. Cody Rhodes, of course, came out along with Arn Anderson, and Peter Avalon, the guy should just stay on AEW Dark. I'm like, why was this match even on the show tonight? This would be a match that you see on AEW Dark. Peter Avalon having this rebrand gimmick where he originally had the librarian gimmick, which went nowhere. The guy is a jobber. The guy is terrible in the ring. And I'm like, this match should have been on AEW Dark. Why was this even put on Dynamite? So we had Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill came out. Cody was looking at her. Cargill was drawing at Cody. The referee was distracted because of Jade Cargill. And with the referee distracted, Peter Avalon ended up low blowing Cody, which that pretty much led to nothing, which Peter Avalon then worked over Cody Rhodes' leg and delivered a chop in the corner, which Cody ended up coming back up and ended up punching Avalon in the face. So that low blow did absolutely nothing on Cody. So Cody ended up going to the top rope. Avalon ended up slowing him down, went for a suplex off the top rope. At the end of the match, Cody ended up getting control. Peter Avalon ended up slapping Cody in the face. Cody then had Peter Avalon in a submission, and there you go. At the end of the match, you had Cody locked in the figure 4 on Peter Avalon, Avalon was slapping Cody in the face. Cody then went to slap Avalon, and he was still in the figure 4. Avalon ended up tapping out. So there you go. Cody ended up winning the match. I said, easy win for Cody. This match was terrible, in my opinion. Peter Avalon should stay on AEW Dark. Guy's terrible in the ring. So then we went backstage and we saw FTR, Dax Harwood, Cash Wheeler, and Tully Blanchard. And they end up talking about how they are being ranked number 1 in the official rankings, the official AEW rankings. Blanchard ended up saying that they need the titles, though. He ended up saying that's the bragging rights. So then we had the Jurassic Express end up coming in. Jungle Boy ends up saying that he's sick of this and that he knows he can beat either one of them. Dax Harwood end up stepping up to the plate, saying that he'll take Jungle Boy on one-on-one next week on Dynamite. Luchasaurus then end up saying that everyone will be ringside and he will make sure nobody gets involved. So Jungle Boy ended up putting his hand out. Harwood ended up shaking his hand. So the Jurassic Express then headed out of the room, and Harwood ended up telling Wheeler that he got this. And then he ended up throwing a glass toward the door. So that was that. So we're going to be seeing Jungle Boy versus Dax Harwood next week on Dynamite. So then we had Moxley versus Nick Comoroto, which this was a quick match here. The match started off with Nick Comoroto shoving Moxley. Moxley came back and delivered a headbutt. Moxley was delivering punches and stomps in the corner to Comoroto. Moxley delivered some big chops and a clothesline. Moxley then ended up winning. He ended up locking the sleeper. Moxley ended up locking in the sleeper on Comoroto, and that was that. Post-match, we had Moxley end up getting on the mic, and he ended up saying that Wednesdays are getting crazy, and that he can't keep track of who is on which team. Moxley then ended up bringing up Kenny Omega, bringing in friends from outside places, the Good Brothers, Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson. Moxley ended up saying that all it is to him is more violence and necks to break. He ended up saying that the taller the mountain is to climb, the sweeter it is when he gets to the top. Moxley ended up saying that people can be brought in from Mexico or Japan, but all roads lead through him. So that was what Moxley had to say. Pretty decent promo from Moxley. So then we went backstage. Dasha was backstage with Eddie Kingston. Dasha ended up telling Eddie Kingston that he'll face Lance Archer for the first time next week. Dasha then ended up asking Kingston how he'll prepare for Archer. Kingston ended up telling Dasha that he doesn't prepare, and he just fights. So Lance Archer ended up showing up, and he ended up telling Kingston he's ready to fight. And Kingston ended up not wanting to hear it because Archer was talking some more, and Archer was talking over Kingston. Jake Roberts ended up telling Kingston to leave his guys, of course the Butcher and the Blade, behind next week and see how he does against Lance Archer on his own. So there you go. Eddie Kingston versus Lance Archer next week on Dynamite. Gonna be a very good match, I have to say. And then we went backstage. Alex Marvez ended up asking Kenny Omega about what happened at the beach. Omega ended up saying that he wasn't there and he doesn't have a comment. So he ended up going into the locker room. He ended up seeing Don Callis' face all bruised up because of the Bucks attacking him earlier. Callis ended up not wanting Omega to get upset. And Omega wanted to know who did it to Callis. Who gave Don Callis the bruise. So Callis ended up slipping up and he ended up mentioning Matt and Nick. So Omega couldn't believe it. So Alex Marvez was trying to get another comment. Callis then ended up kicking Marvez out and the cameraman also out of the room. So that was that. And then we had Top Flight and Matt Sydal versus Private Party and Matt Hardy. This was a pretty decent match here. Mark Quinn and Dante end up starting things off. We had drop kicks from them. We had a very slow start to the match from Private Party. Matt Hardy ended up saying something to Mark Quinn, which he then tossed his jacket at Matt Sydal. We had Isaiah Cassidy then end up going over and he ended up dropping Top Flight. We had Sydal and Top Flight then up locking in double Boston Crabs on Private Party. Then at the end of the match, we had Mark Quinn and Dante up on the top rope. Isaiah Cassidy ended up delivering a chair shot to Dante's midsection, which the referee was distracted. Mark Quinn ended up hitting the shooting star press, went for the cover, and there you go. Private Party and Matt Hardy ended up winning the match. Post-match, you had Private Party then attacked Matt Sydal and Top Flight. Matt Hardy then delivered a twist of fate. And then they end up celebrating with, he then celebrates with Mark Quinn and Isaiah Cassidy. And that was that. But overall, it was a pretty decent match. And of course, this is leading to Private Party and Matt Hardy being this heel thing here. Private Party is showing, that they're going to be heel along with Matt Hardy. So, heel turn coming for Private Party. And these were the little setups to Private Party, being heels. So, there you go. And then we went backstage and we had MJF and Wardlow. They were talking with Santana, Ortiz, Sammy Guevara, and Jake Hager. MJF ended up saying that if it were up to him, he wouldn't do this match. He wanted to say that Jericho is the leader. So what Jericho says goes. Sammy Guevara then ended up getting in MJF's face and says if it were up to him, things would be different. So Sammy was being held back. MJF was cooling things down. And he ended up saying, let's just go out there and finish things off. MJF then ended up fist bumping the guys. And Sammy ended up saying they aren't there yet. So that was that. And then we had Penelope Ford versus Leyla Hirsch, which, like I said earlier, it was originally supposed to be Nyla Rose versus Leyla Hirsch, but Nyla Rose ended up coming in contact with a close family member that had COVID. So Nyla Rose had to quarantine, and so they replaced her with Penelope Ford. So Penelope Ford, of course, came out along with Kip Sabian, Miro, and Chuck Taylor, who was dressed in a butler outfit because Chucky T ended up losing the match last week to Miro. And because of that, Chucky T has to be the Butler to Miro. And that will end after Penelope and Kip Sabian's wedding at Beach Break on February 3rd. So, but the match was just meh, in my opinion. Orange Cassidy was sitting in the crowd. Leyla Hirsch ended up tripping up Penelope Ford, rolled Penelope Ford around the mat. Penelope Ford then delivered a side headlock, but got back into the ropes. Ford ended up delivering a kick to Leyla Hirsch's knee, which sent Leyla Hirsch down. We had Chucky T was trying to trip up Leyla Hirsch, but she ended up getting a cross arm breaker on Penelope Ford. And Hirsch was out on the floor, and she was barking at Kip Sabian. Penelope Ford ended up coming from the side and hit a pump kick, which sent Leyla Hirsch into the barricade. And we had, at the end of the match, Penelope Ford ended up winning because Kip Sabian ended up holding down Leyla Hirsch's boot, so she couldn't kick out. So because of that, Penelope Ford ended up winning. So post-match, Miro then called in Chucky T, or as he referred to as Charles, and he wanted an update. Miro ended up telling Chucky T, or as he would call him, Charles, that he can take him to new heights and that he has to let go of the past. So Miro ended up telling him that he needs to let Orange Cassidy know that Miro is his best friend now. So Chucky T, or as Miro would say, Charles, ended up taking the mic, and he was forced, of course, Chucky T was forced by Miro to say this. So he ended up saying that, Charles ended up saying that Miro is now his best friend. So Orange Cassidy was saddened by what Chucky T is dealing with. So Orange Cassidy ended up making his way up the stairs. But of course, Chucky T was forced to say this from Miro. So that was that. But the match itself, it was just very meh, in my opinion, with Penelope Ford and Leyla Hirsch. So then after that, we went backstage, and we saw the Good Brothers, Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson. They were shown beating up on Penta El Zia Miedo. So they were throwing Penta into the garage door. Kenny Omega and Don Callis show up. Omega ends up joining the Good Brothers on the beating on Penta. Carl Anderson then ended up choking Penta with a cable. Omega ended up hitting Penta with his boot, and he ended up jamming the point of the boot into Penta's eye. So Don Callis was yelling. He ends up laughing, and they end up leaving, the Good Brothers and Kenny Omega. And that was that. But a brutal beatdown of Penta El Zia Miedo with the Good Brothers and Kenny Omega. And so then commentary ended up announcing what we're going to be seeing next week on Dynamite. Next week on Dynamite, we're going to be seeing Jungle Boy versus Dax Harwood. So that was announced earlier in the night. Eddie Kingston versus Lance Archer. Cody is going to respond to Shaq's comments from a few weeks back. And we're going to be seeing the Bucks and the Good Brothers versus the Dark Order. Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds. And then, of course, they went over what we're going to be seeing in 2 weeks, because in 2 weeks it's going to be Beach Break. So, of course, we're going to be seeing the wedding of Penelope Ford and Kip Sabian, Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker, and there's going to be a tag team battle royal taking place at Beach Break. And the winner of that battle royal, that tag team battle royal, will face the AEW Tag Team Champions at Revolution. And they also announced that a Women's World Championship Eliminator Tournament is going to be taking place to determine the number one contender for the AEW Women's World Championship. And they said on commentary that it's going to be coming soon. So, there you go. We got all that announced. Main event. Jericho and MJF versus Santana and Ortiz versus Jake Hager and Sammy Guevara. Winner will declare themselves as the best tag team in the Inner Circle, or the official tag team of the Inner Circle. And they will continue on the journey to face the tag team champions. But this was a pretty okay match here, but the end to this match was very rushed. So Sammy Guevara ended up getting in MJF's face as the match got underway, and anyone in this match could tag in. There was no disqualifications in this match. So Jericho ended up tagging in. He ended up facing Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara was delivering some chops to Jericho, and he then clotheslined Jericho out to the floor. So we had Sammy end up flipping back into the ring, does a little dance. Jericho ended up looking on from the floor. He then got back into the ring. So he had Hager and Santana get into the match. Santana ended up delivering a trip kick and then a drop kick to the head. Ortiz ended up coming in. Jericho blind tags in. And Santana and Ortiz end up hitting a double suplex. And there was also a point in the match on commentary. They ended up announcing that it will be Moxley, Ray Phoenix, and Pac versus Kenny Omega, Carl Anderson, and Doc Gallows at Beach Break on February 3rd. So that match is also going to be taking place at Beach Break. So they had to do, promote that match, at Beach Break during this match. So at the end of the match, the end of this match was very rushed because it was 9:59. So they had to finish this on time. So they didn't want to go over 10 o'clock. So we had Sammy was looking to take down MJF. And he ended up hitting Wardlow off of the apron. So MJF ended up rolling up Sammy Guevara. MJF was grabbing Sammy Guevara's tights for the win. So Jericho and MJF end up winning the match in a rushed faction here. So, and by the time that that MJF ended up rolling up Sammy Guevara, Dynamite went off the air that quick, because already it was 10 o'clock. When MJF rolled up Sammy Guevara, it was already 10 o'clock, so they had to go off the air quick. So, like I said, rushed. So, but overall, the match was okay. But as for the show, like I said, it wasn't a very good show. It wasn't bad. It wasn't on the levels of Monday Night Raw bad. So there's going to be times where AEW at points is going to deliver a show that's not good. So, but overall, like I said, it wasn't Monday Night Raw bad. But there's been talks of AEW bringing in trios championships. There's rumors of that. And there's also rumors of them adding another show. There's talks of AEW having another show. And who knows if it's going to be on TNT or if it's going to be on TBS. Who knows what night it's going to be on. Some people say, oh, it's going to be it will be on Thursday night or it will be on Saturday night. If I had to choose, it would be awesome if they put the show, this new AEW show, on Saturday night. Whether it would be on TNT or TBS, that would be awesome. But there's all this talk, about that, and with AEW rumored to bring in Trios Championships. So that'd be cool to add Trios Championships to AEW. But overall, that was Dynamite tonight. So anyways, that's it for the Dynamite review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all on Friday, of course, for the SmackDown review. So until then, see you Friday with SmackDown.